Honduras Expreso.
Istoria bisericii este direct legată de istoria cavalerilor Sfântului Ioan din Malta. Ordinul a fost organizat în 8 limbi, reprezentând diferite regiuni ale Europei. Crucea cu 8 vârfuri, pe care o vedeți afișată pe pilonii verzi, reprezintă cele 8 limbi. Cavalerii erau nobili din unele dintre cele mai importante familii din Europa. După ce și-a pierdut baza militară din Ierusalim și, mai târziu, din Rodos, ordinul a primit insula Malta în 1530 de la împăratul Carol al V-lea al Spaniei. Această zonă pe care o vedeți în spatele balustradelor este un loc sacru și reprezintă punctul central al bisericii, deoarece aici se află altarul principal. Este un exemplu perfect al stilului baroc extravagant care reflectă măreția ordinului în secolul al XVII-lea. Ordinul Sfântului Ioan a fost fondat la Ierusalim în secolul al XI-lea, în timpul Cruciadelor, ca o frăție religioasă care să ajute la protejarea pelerinilor care se îndreptau spre Țara Sfântă. Când Ierusalimul a căzut în mâinile turcilor, cavalerii au început să își asume un rol mai mult militar. După cum ați observat până acum, întreaga podea este acoperită cu pietre funerare din marmură. Acestea îi comemorează pe unii dintre cei mai iluștri cavaleri ai ordinului. Toate pietrele funerare au un design original și sunt compuse din marmură colorată încrustată. Acestea datează de la începutul secolului al XVII-lea până la sfârșitul secolului al XVIII-lea. Fiecare piatră funerară este foarte bogat decorată cu expresii reprezentând triumful, faima și moartea. Scheletele și craniile sunt adesea incluse în iconografia pietrelor funerare. Bolta semicilindrică, așa cum se numește acest tip de tavan rotunjit, a fost decorată de Mattia Preti, un cunoscut artist din Italia. În stânga și în dreapta se află marii maestri cotoner Rafael și Nicolas, care au fost mari binefăcători ai ordinului și ai acestei biserici. Cripta marilor maestri se află chiar sub sanctuar, iar primii 12 mari maestri care au domnit în Malta sunt înmormântați acolo. Mormântul marelui maestru Jean de la Cassier, în timpul domniei căruia a fost construită biserica, este amplasat în mod simbolic imediat sub marele altar.
E pictată cu Scooby-Doo, cu, uite, alea, cu cimitirul, cu misterele, cu... Are și roțile verzi.
Ladies and gentlemen, we hope that the gun was loud enough and that you've enjoyed today's firing. May I kindly suggest that you give a good round of applause to our boys in uniform for their splendid display.
Alright, good afternoon ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining us here at the Saluting Battery for the noonday gun firing. A tradition started here in Malta centuries ago that we keep alive even till today. Before I start though, I would like to tell you a bit more about the organisation that works here. We are called Fondazione Veritartna, the Malta Heritage Trust, and we are an NGO, a non-governmental organisation, and a non-profit. That means that the funds we get, they go straight into our projects of restoring and preserving historical landmarks here in Malta, just like we've done here with the Saluting Battery. And we are taking care of over 20 sites here on the island, not all of them yet open to the public. And just by visiting us here today at the Saluting Battery, you're helping us to continue with these projects. So thank you very much for joining us here today. Without your help, we'd not be able to do what we're doing today. On top of this bastion, well, we have the Saluting Battery, which would serve three purposes. First, defensive. If anyone tried to sail into the Grand Harbour here uninvited, well, the cannon from this platform and also from up on top in the garden there under the arches, they will be able to fire down against any ships down in the harbour. The second purpose, Well, as the name implies, the battery was used for salutes. And salutes, it was basically a way to show it was safe to sail into the harbor by emptying your cannon. Very much like a salute from a soldier. The soldier shows you he has no weapon in his hand. He's showing you it's not dangerous. Right? And through traditions and ceremonies, the more cannon that were fired, the more important the person was who was sailing into the Grand Harbor. So in the 19th century, for example, which we're reenacting here at the battery, if a captain was sailing into the harbor, there would be a 3-gun salute here from the battery. An admiral of the fleet, the highest rank in the Navy, 19 guns were fired. Then the ranks in between. Royalty, 21. And then if it was a religious holiday, or if the Pope came here to Malta, there would be a 24-gun salute here from the saluting battery, because God is always more important. Right? So that would be the second purpose of the battery, salutes. Right? Now the third purpose was for timekeeping. In the morning at sunrise, 1 cannon was fired to tell everyone around Valetta that the city gates are open. Another cannon was then fired at midday to mark the passing of noon, and then at sunset another cannon was fired to close the city gates again. And we have our own version of the noonday and evening gun today, when we fire at 12 and 4 o'clock. We don't fire at sunset because we close at 4:30 and we want to go home. So let's continue the tour. Let's go over to the cannon next to the monument over here. So first thing first though is the name of this cannon. This is a 24-pounder smooth-bore muzzle-loading gun. Sounds complicated, but I'm going to explain each part of the name. By understanding this cannon, you will understand all of the guns we have here on the battery. So first things first, 24 pounds. Well, that is not... Yes, 24 pounds. 24 pounds is not the weight of the barrel. I can bet any one of you will not be able to lift this here. It's over almost 2 tons. Now the 24 pounds refer to the size of the cannonball. But cannons are actually quite versatile. Anything that fits inside of the barrel, you can fire out of them. So, have you seen Pirates of the Caribbean? Yes? You remember the scene when they loaded cannon with cutlery? And the guy with the wooden eye got a fork in it. We actually have reports of soldiers doing this back in the days. They ran out of ammunition, they loaded the cannon with cutlery, rocks, gravel, sand, glass, cats, dogs, anything that they could find to turn the cannon into a massive shotgun, hitting anything that is standing in front of it. But the cannon was made to fire 24-pounder cannonballs. Right? Next part of the name, smooth bore. And the bore refers to the inside of the barrel. And it is smooth. Now that means that we have 0 accuracy with these guns. Because when you fire your cannonball, it will bounce around the side of the barrel. Last point of contact by the muzzle will send the cannonball flying to the left, right, up, down, everywhere, but never straight. So that's why they would have a full row of cannon on the batteries. They will point them in the general direction of the enemy, fire them all at the same time, and you cross your fingers, and at least one of them hits. And it's not until the later stages of the 1800s we then start using rifle cannon, and that's when we get range and accuracy, and we can start using 1 gun instead of 20. Right? Now you can see here that the doors and window are covered with wooden doors with bronze and copper plates. Now that is to prevent any flames or sparks from outside here on the battery to fly in and ignite the gunpowder on the inside. But why do you think that the plates are made out of bronze or copper?
Because they don't make sparks when they're hit.
Exactly, right? One issue that we have with gunpowder, it is very easy to ignite it. Even static electricity, 1 spark could ignite the gunpowder. So everything inside of the gunpowder store needs to be made with materials that doesn't create any form of sparks at all, like copper and bronze. Right? Even before you enter inside of the gunpowder store. Sorry. There you go. The gunners would have to change the uniforms before they entered. So the first chamber here is a shifting lobby where the gunners would have to strip out of the uniforms. Because this blue uniform that I'm wearing today, back in those days it was made out of wool. And you might have experienced it when you're taking off a wool sweater, how it sparks in your hair. Right? Those sparks, boom. Right? Same thing with the boots they used to wear. On the soles of the shoes, they would have nails. Right? The gunners would actually sound like tap dancers when they were walking around here. That could also create a spark. So in the shifting lobby, they would change into a white fatigue uniform like the one on the mannequin inside here, with wooden buttons, and then they would have galoshes that they put over their boots so they can go inside and prepare the gunpowder. In leather satchels, which would be issued through the windows, so the gunners can then grab the gunpowder and bring it out to the gun to then have it fired, and then bring the empty satchels back into the gunpowder store. Once they were done with the duties inside here, they can then step back into the shifting lobby, change back into their ordinary uniforms, and then continue with their duties out here on the battery.